Odysseus, the Epic Myth of the Hero, Book 13. I walked into the camp of brave Achaeans, cradling close the dread Palladium, as though it were my son Telemachus. The shout went up that Odysseus, unforeseen, had made it back somehow. The rank and file rejoiced and waved their torches high and lifted me upon their shoulders while they sang and hooted praises of my stealth and hopes of quick and easy victory soon, anticipating burning Troy and making horrors of Trojan widows. I never cared for what the mob proclaimed. These same would caper just as idiotically for the trap to swing beneath my feet and thrilled to see me snap my neck at the butt end of a rope. I laid the dread Palladium at mighty Agamemnon's feet and spoke these words: "Beyond all expectation I return. The only equal to my cunning mind is my enduring back. They are all I need for faith and fate to walk this wondrous life to death, and this is why the goddess favors me. Eye to eye, I search the kings who wished me dead with satisfaction then. The lord of men and horses, Agamemnon, ordered serving girls to robe my striped and naked body in a cloth that once had hung above the throne of ancient kings, and spoke these vaunting words with great delight. Versatile Odysseus, you never are the very best in any single thing of all the bold accomplishments that make Achaean men so great. But who among us can build a ship, or sing a song, or find a way to win somehow the likes of you, all in one man? Now come and tell me privately the things you saw in Troy." This said, I told him of my pact with Hecuba, the wife of Priam, king of Troy, the mother of horse-breaking Hector, bane to myriad fighters of brave Achaeans, and to that thief of love, resplendent Paris, both now killed and gone to Hades' house. I told him of the beauty Helen and her bold complicity concerning the theft of the dread Palladium. He mused in silence like a storm gathering, and finally spoke these haggard words: "I see just why you made your pact with Hecuba. No king, however, knows the limits of his sway among his followers better than I, who could not even save his darling daughter from the sacrificial knife. The Trojans will never give up, because Priam knows that at this point, with 10 long horrid years of war and thousands dead, it's either win or die for us, for them. But if we take their sacred citadel, the queen of Troy is yours to save and do with as you please, in honor of the binding oath that spared your life." This said, and Agamemnon summoned heralds to announce a 12-day truce to give the queen a chance to bring her king around. The hopes ran high throughout the camp that weary war might finally cease, but spies could ferret nothing of the Trojan will, nor would old Priam entertain ambassadors, and at the dawn of truce's end, a horror greeted us. 100 corpses dangled from the parapets, oozing blood from wounds of torture, all Achaean fighters held as hostage, trussed and carved. A weary-hearted, helpless rage consumed the rank and file, and all the kings of sea-girt bold Achaea heard their men to mutter curses at their backs as they reviewed their troops or walked throughout the camp. The Trojans would not leave their walls to fight, and so our tactics centered mainly on us cutting off their food supply. We razed their crops and burnt their groves, but men who came from farms themselves detested such a sorry waste and deemed it cowards' work. The rank and file of common fighters wanted one last final battle, soon, to settle each and every score, and then sail back to kith and kin, no matter what the outcome. Now my celebrated one-man raid drew jeers as just another useless effort towards impossible victory. And then the seer Elenus, the sorry one who put me to the task of pilfering the dread Palladium from Troy, was found upon the altar dedicated to the artifact, his throat slashed red, his eyes gouged out, his ear canals reamed clean with purple urchin spines. And now the army turned their eyes to me again to find a way to gain the Scaean gate and topple Troy's commanding towers that stood as strong with 10 long years of war as when Protesilaus, the first Achaean king to hit the beach, there died in bloody strife with Hector before his feet could touch dry sand. Because I could not conjure up a ruse at will, their hatred grew. I dreamed one windy night, and in my dream a hunter stalked a doe upon a mountain peak. His arrow finally found its mark, but missed both heart and lung, and so the chase continued as the wounded beast ran on and on and on. At length the doe lay down to die, but cursed the hunter to the gods. A viper full of venom slithered out of jagged rocks and worked his head and body down the dead doe's mouth until he coiled inside the gut. The hunter slung his prey across his back and walked the weary distance home and took it in his house to skin and dress it out. And when he took his brazen blade and ripped the doe from gut to throat, the viper coiled inside now struck and sunk its poisoned fangs into the hunter's hand. I woke in terror, and then I laughed out loud. I had a plan and knew it was a blessing of the goddess, bright Athena. Outside, the sky held not a cloud, and dawn was hours off. The moon was but a yellowed crescent low and to the east, with Venus burning brightly up and to the left. The wanderer Saturn lingered to the west, and up along the path that ever-circling constellations marched the season. Scorpio stood at zenith with his stinging tail straight up, and from the hot horizon south up to the cold north one, the brilliant cloud of stars, the Milky Way, arched high above and pointed me to where the tents of skilled Epeius were pitched upon that hard-won beach below the walls of Troy. Epeius, son of Panopeus, was a Phocian from Mount Parnassus, living on the heights above the oracle of Delphi, which prophesied that he would have success in all he did in life save one heartfelt desire. He grew to be a famous boxer all throughout Achaea, and at the funeral games for selfless brave Patroclus, inconsolable Achilles awarded him a 6-year-old unbroken mare for knocking out Euryalus, friend of mighty Diomedes. Epeius started out the war as brave as any other fighter, yet as the slaughter grew, so did his fear, and now he had the reputation as a coward when it came to combat. He was a skillful carpenter, and built the finest ships and homes in all Achaea. He was the best to make my plan a thing all men could touch and see, and marvel at my ingenuity. Now crews of loggers climbed the heights of Ida, forest-covered mountain looming east of Troy, where Hera tricked all-father Zeus with Aphrodite's belt and lured him into rapturous lovemaking, enveloped in a magic haze that let Achaean forces slip beneath his gaze and bring profound destruction to the Trojans till he woke. Accompanying the loggers walked a priest of Zeus, whose sacred tree, the stately oak, Epeius sought because it was the surest wood for building grand designs. The priest would bless each keen selection, begging pardon of the dryad spirit dwelling deep within, before we felled her home. The gnarly branches were all trimmed by eager axemen, and every trace of bark removed. This refuse then was burnt in kiln to make charcoal needed for the blacksmiths, forging fittings, nails, and spikes. The mighty trunks were bucked and quartered using brazen wedges and rough-hewn planks, plain smooth of every defect. This work made loads for 50 carts, each drawn by teams of oxen. Back in camp, the stacks of lumber rose above the reach of all except the tallest fighters. Now Epeius made a wooden horse that could have been a steed for Father Zeus himself. He made this wooden horse with all the skill and magic that the shipwright Argus used to build the fabled Argo, vessel that my father, brave Laertes, rode along with Jason when he stole the golden fleece from far-off Colchis. The wooden horse stood not a finger less than 50 hands, from hooves to withers, taller than our tallest 3 bold fighters, stacked like acrobats. The hooves were wrapped in hammered gleaming bronze and glinted stolen fire. The eyes were blends of sea and sky that is the stone from eastern lands renowned as lapis lazuli. The tail and main wind caught wind as would the wings of birds disturbed by sudden buffets of a gale from Zeus. The wooden horse stood posed to charge, its right front hoof pawing the earth, its head dipped down, its teeth were bared as if it strained against the bit. It was a piece of life arrested in mid-motion. Gazing on it was to realize that wood of tree and flesh and bone were somehow really one. The eye could see no seam or joint between the planks, and so the horse appeared as if it were the product of a single giant block of wood. But deep inside, Epeius worked a hidden chamber large enough to pack a company of 50 armored fighters. Not a single shipwright all throughout the army could detect the trapdoor in the belly. Now we chose the men to hide inside the wooden horse. We stood 1,000 fighters, fully battle-clad out in the sun and wind and dark of night, and bid them hold their tongues until they dropped in place. The last and finest 48 left standing won a berth in this immortal brotherhood of war. The last but one inside the wooden horse was skilled Epeius. Then there was myself.